Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. I hope that everyone is doing well. This week's Torah portion is Kititze, and within this Torah portion, we have 74 of the 613 mitzvot, or commandments, given to us. It's the largest collection, of mitzvot at one time given to the Jews. As kids, we learn that a mitzvah is a good deed. However, the direct translation of mitzvah is actually commandment. Some of them are positive. You should love your neighbor as yourself, and some of them are in the negative. Don't mix milk and meat, or the laws of kashrut. So within that 613, a large amount of them could never be accomplished by modern day Jews. Why? Because many of them were written at a time when the temple in Jerusalem still stood. And therefore, if we would have to follow those today, we would have to do so at that temple in Jerusalem. So if someone is ever thinking of, I'm going to set out and do all 613 commandments, I just took you off the hook for that one. But in terms of this week's Torah portion, we get some very interesting, possibly not known of commandments that are, I think, of themselves extremely timely and also timeless. Within this week's Torah portion, we learn about the laws of marriage, but also divorce, which was something that was allowed at the time of the Torah. We learn about the treatment of all animals. We also learn something so beautiful as before taking the eggs of a nest, that we're supposed to shoo the mama bird away so she doesn't see us taking her eggs. Now, it sounds beautiful and it's touching, and then we get to some of the other commandments about blotting out the name of Amalek, about what we do when we take land over. The idea of these mitzvot, if ever you were to read them in one solid collection, is really something that you should actually take a look at, because there are so many that are what we do in our everyday lives and don't even know, and things that we do incorrectly, at least based on what the Torah tells us not to do. In fact, one of my favorite ones is you cannot wear soccer cleats on Shabbat. And I would say, okay, first of all, there was no soccer at the time of Torah, but this is a modern responsa. And the reason why is because a soccer cleat is looked at, the bottom of it, as if you are farming the land, as if you are, I don't know the exact word, but when you put the holes into the land and you're allowing it to aerate. I think it is aerate. And so you cannot wear cleats. An Orthodox kid cannot wear cleats on Shabbat because it would actually aid the field in the growth process. How do we take the other 612, let's say, commandments besides that one in a liberal setting? For most people, we have the opportunity to look at that as, how did it serve our people at that time, and how do we modernize it to now? But there's also something, even within the Reform movement, called responsa. What responsa does, it's a collection of books. It takes the original commandments, the original mitzvot, and it modernizes them based on text over time. So, for example, we didn't have computers, obviously, back in the Torah. So how is there now a prohibition to use a computer, let's say, on Shabbat within the traditional world? Well, you can follow along in these responses. You can go from year to decade to different examples that then upgrade and update what you couldn't do at the time of the Torah, which had to do with writing and inscribing. And they then eventually got that to, well, a computer does it digitally, but it's still fulfilling the same job. Therefore, you can't use a computer on Shabbat if you're in the Orthodox community. There's so many opportunities for us to learn, and it's not just learning about Torah. So far, right now, I've spoken to you about the mitzvot. That's in a whole different set of books that we could look at within Midrash. We could also look at Mishnah. We could look at responsa. So when we talk about studying Torah, we have to remind ourselves there's not just the 5 books. There are canonized thousands of other volumes after the Torah that we have the opportunity to have access to as Jewish learners. So if this interested you, I'm so glad. If you are going to go wear your cleats to soccer, I'm glad about that too. But I hope that you learned something this morning, and I hope that you have a wonderful Shabbat. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible this weekend. Tonight we have services. Tomorrow morning we have Torah study and brunch. And again, we have Sunday school on Sunday. Take good care. Learn something else new this week. My best. Bye-bye.